Number 12, Daniel Williams says, are altar calls biblical? Hard to find much of this in the New Testament. Hard to think this through without preconceived notions. Thanks, Pastor Mike. What do you guys think? Think about this while I drink some wonderful water from a Brita water filter. Brita water makes better water. I'm not endorsed. Maybe I'm just tired and being silly. Okay. Daniel Williams. Are altar calls biblical? Well, there's different versions of biblical in our heads. So there's are there examples of altar calls in the Bible? And then there's are altar calls consistent with what we see in Scripture? Or perhaps you could even say it's unbiblical if it's actually contradictory with something we see in Scripture. And there's been a lot of heated discussion over the past few years, at least in some circles, on the topic of altar calls. Understandably, because here's the downside of altar calls before I get into the biblical part of it. At least my perceptions of this. Again, the goal of this isn't for you to learn the answers that I have. I try to hopefully talk through these issues in a way that helps you see the process, at least my process of understanding how to think it through biblically, so that you can learn that process more than you learn my answer to a specific question, because that process is where the value is. And then you start doing this on your own, and you're like, I don't even need to know whatever Mike thinks about that, because I am thinking biblically. And then I'm like, yes. Fly, little birdie, fly. That's the good thing. So the process is this. First, to recognize why this is an issue. There are plenty of opportunities for people to do altar calls that are, let's say, suboptimal altar calls that are more designed to increase the numbers of people coming forward than they are to increase the number of people getting saved. I've seen this for myself. I think that it's happened many times. I remember a camp where I have several camps, youth camps, where they was going to do an altar call, and it was sad how it on a regular basis. I say this not to be super judgmental about it, but just to recognize that this is a genuine issue. On a regular basis, the altar calls at camp were so vague that I don't think the kids knew why they were being asked to go forward, or what is required of them, or what going forward meant, other than that it was some sort of spiritual release. I don't think that's super healthy. I don't think that's super effective. And I don't think it showed very lasting fruit for most of the students. And unfortunately, that's the case for a lot of altar calls, because what happens is when you're the guy on stage, you're the band on stage, you're the speaker on stage, and you're at a camp or an outreach event, there's a lot of pressure to measure from yourself and from others, to measure your successfulness and whether you'll be invited back, whether people will consider you to be effective or not, whether you consider you to be effective or not, based on that moment where you get a response of people coming forward. And so it's very tempting to try to give them more and more reasons to come forward. Hey man, if you want to give your life to Christ, I want you to come forward right now. I want you to come forward right now. And then maybe I widen it a bit more. Maybe there's just a time for you to rededicate your life. Maybe it's just refocus your life. I'm not always sure what that means. Sometimes I am, sometimes I'm not. Come forward right now. Maybe it's just, you just need victory in a particular little area, right? Maybe it's not your whole life. Maybe it's just one. Maybe if there's any sin that you can think of in your entire life, maybe there's some emotional fulfillment that you want in your life. Perhaps you stubbed your toe on the way in here and you just want that throbbing pain to stop. Like, just come forward, guys. Everyone come forward. We're here for you. And then everyone applauds. It turns sometimes into this thing where we've lost the plot. This has caused a big reaction against altar calls in a lot of circles, some circles, because they look at it and they go, okay, I saw the Harvest Crusade, or I saw the Billy Graham, for those of you who still remember who that is, the Billy Graham crusade, or I saw this church camp event, or this thing, and I'm skeptical as to how effective that altar call even was. Yet I think a lot of the people walked out thinking, I'm right with God, but I don't know if they really are, in which case maybe it even caused some harm. So I understand that. Now, I've seen altar calls where people are, like, I think Greg Laurie's a better example of this, because he tends to be a bit more like, no, you're coming forward because you're repenting to put your faith and trust in Jesus. His method is more along the lines of a clear call for a biblical response to the gospel, I think. So, okay, now let's go to like the biblical answer to these questions. Are altar calls in the Bible? Well, not exactly. I mean, altar calls themselves, okay, if you use a generic definition, you can kind of find something like this in the Bible. So if your generic definition is to turn to a crowd of people and give them an immediate call to repent and believe in Jesus, yep, Acts chapter 2 does that. Absolutely. In fact, a ton of people got saved at that exact moment, which implies what? That there was a actual visible response. Like they didn't, catch this, they didn't necessarily say, come and stand here at this location in front of our stage. But what they did do was they had some measurable response because they were able to count how many people were added to the Lord that day. So they were able to actually count the heads, so to speak. Not that that was the motive, but they did. They were able to say, hey, this is how many people got saved. 3,000, 5,000, Acts 2, Acts 3, Acts 4. You read Acts 5, look at these early passages. Like those are massive outreach events. Not exactly planned. Well, planned by God, not by man. So, you know, there's like a response with a visible way of determining that someone was responding to it. So that's interesting. So it'd be hard to rule them out entirely just based upon that parallel in Acts. Now, what about in the more generic sense of, is it biblical? Does it cross any boundaries? I think here it depends on the quality and kind of the altar call. That's where the analysis should take place, not on whether they should happen or not, but the quality and kind. Did I give a clear gospel presentation? Did I invite them to receive the gospel in a genuine fashion? And if you did, then I think people responding, whether it's going forward to a stage, or if it's praying in their seat, or going home and thinking about it or whatever, hopefully more than just thinking, but wherever and whenever they respond, I think is up in the air as far as whether it's an option to do it. The danger I have and the criticism that most likely comes against altar calls, which I agree with, is it's too vague, it's too broad, it's too easy, and it doesn't stick. And that does happen a lot of the time because after the event, you're more likely to invite the people who organize the event are more likely to invite the speaker back who got the biggest audience response. And that turns it into a game of biggest audience response. And that's not wise, that's not mature, but it does happen a lot.